All right, hello. We are group four. We're going to be doing our chapter 16 presentation on global human resource management. We're going to introduce ourselves. Next slide. My name is Deavan Johnson. Pictured here is my dog Max. He's 11 years old. He's a rescue. I don't know the breed, but a good partner. Currently, I am the director of development at CSUB for NSME, BPA in Antelope Valley. My main role is responsible for community engagement, donations, internships, and sponsorships. Speaking of internships, we do have some that are coming up soon. If you're interested in working in banking in Antelope Valley, let me know. We have some HR, finance, and accounting ones should be coming up soon. And then a fun fact is we just bought our tickets. We're going to Korea in March of next year. Really excited about it. So if you have any tips, please leave it in the comments when we post the video. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Esther Linares. I am a tax accountant for my family's small business called Linares Painting. I currently oversee the management of materials, financial data entry, employee time cards, and payroll processing. I am also currently looking for an internship specifically focusing on business taxes. A few fun facts about me is that my family and I are proud owners of three boy dogs, Rocky, Charlie, and Shadow, and a turtle named Leo. And yes, my little brother named him Leonardo after the Ninja Turtles. And another fun fact is I know how to solve a Rubik's Cube.
Hello, my name is Danny Hawara. I do hold two bachelor degrees. I am self-employed. I do small format retail. I'm trying to finish my MBA program and get into a law school hopefully after. In regard to fun facts, I do want to visit all seven world wonders. I am on three so far. So I speak Arabic and I have my daughter up there in the picture with me.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alexandre-Fabian. Currently, I have a bachelor's in business administration with a focus in management, and I'm currently working on my MBA, which I should graduate in fall of 2027. I currently work at Edwards Air Force Base as a student intern. I'm a defense travel administrator, so I would just basically handle all the travel stuff for the people at work. And then, fun fact about me, I get to travel the world for free because my mom's a flight attendant. So that's a nice little perk that I have. I'm also fluent in English, French, and Spanish. And that picture is a picture of me and my lovely girlfriend, Lauren.
Hi everyone, my name is Navdeep, and currently I'm working as continuous improvement coordinator. I'm also taking more responsibilities of financial analyst. So part of my daily job routine is to prepare daily reports, month-end financial reports, and do KPI analysis. A fun fact about me, I love traveling, and I recently made a new resolution to visit at least one country every year. This year, I went to Canada with my family, and I'm planning to go to England next year. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is George Huleis. This is my first semester in the MBA program, and I'm planning to graduate in spring 2027. I graduated from CSUB this year with a business administration degree with a concentration in management. I'm currently employed at CSUB AV's Veteran Success Center, and we also partner with AVC's Veteran Resource Center to help alleviate the financial burdens a lot of the veteran demographic face here in the Antelope Valley. Couple fun facts about me is I love to travel. I love to go to theme parks, and I love to root for the Dodgers. And on the right corner is my dog Gucci. She's a white Maltese. All right, so we're going to be going over 9 presentation objectives. The first being global trade. The second is global business approaches. The third is international staffing assignments. 4 is international compensation practices. 5 is labor union issues. 6 is developing leaders for a global organization. 7 is the case summary. 8 is we're going to be showing you a YouTube video and a recap. And then 9, we're going to wrap things up with some discussion questions.
All right, so we're going to start here with the economic interdependence. And what economic interdependence is a system where nations or regions rely on one another for goods, services, and resources. And so, due to the increase advancements in technology and connectivity, like we can text, teams, things all across the world at an instant. And so it allows for us to be more connected as a team and as a global community. And this is due to our open borders policies. These are policies that reduce the friction in exchange of goods and capital. Uh, and the majority of companies that are doing these are called multinational enterprises. China and the United States leading these. Here in the United States, we have the S&P 500, which is a 500 companies here in the United States. And they are all considered basically multinational enterprises. One thing that I was able to learn was that in 2024, Goldman Sachs estimated that the S&P 500, 59% of the revenue made by them was from foreign markets. So they are this policy is helping these companies advance and make things better. Next. So we're going to talk about global and regional alliances next. And so we have some great examples here as, USMCA, EU, and TPP. And what this does for HR is, these alliances drive standardization of HR practices within these regions, I'm sorry. But they also require them to maintain like a rigorous compliance with multiple legal frameworks simultaneously. A great example of this was recently we have a student worker who is from the UK and he's going back home to go back to work. And, his biggest fear is the competition within the UK is really tough because a lot of people can't leave and work in other EU countries. And so he's dealing with that moment right now where in the EU, where they can easily move labor across borders, they can't in the UK and they can't to the UK, the United States. So he's kind of doing that in real life. So next slide. And we're going to end here on, considering the human element, the population and demographic trends going on. As the global workforce is shifting, in many developed nations, what they're seeing is a aging workforce. That's only here in the United States with the baby boomers, but I was very fortunate to go to Italy and to study abroad trip. In January, we sat down with their Economic Development Council of Tuscany, basically, and they were telling us about how the older generations are retiring, the younger generations are leaving, and how that is causing a heavy financial burden on them and their social systems and their pension plans. And so you can look it up now. Italy is paying people to come to their country and selling homes for $1, things like that. So it's really interesting. So we're seeing a very interesting migration flow of people leaving less developed nations to more developed nations. And to compensate for that, companies are coming up with, more automation, more robotics. Again, when we sat down in Italy with a bunch of businesses, the biggest fear was that the era of craftsmen is over, the people that made things with their hands because things are getting outsourced to China, things are getting automated. And what used to be a specialization, whether it was, binding books or doing anything like that is all going away. So it's very interesting. Kind of see that in real time this year and learn about it. So, but now that we've established the major factors impacting global trade, from economic interdependence to demographic shifts, I'll hand it over to Esther, who will talk about global business approaches.
Thank you, Deavan. So, reasons for global expansion include businesses seeking to gain access to capital, customers, suppliers, and employees. It is important to note that business leaders choose to enter the international market in different ways, and these ways are known as the global business forms. And there's two, non-equity and equity. Non-equity business forms include importing and exporting, licensing and franchising, and piggyback approaches. These approaches provide low cost entry into new global markets and demand little from the HR staff. On the other hand, equity business forms such as joint ventures, mergers, acquisitions, and direct investment approaches actually present a greater risk to the firm and require more assistance from the HR staff. However, we will only be looking at three global business approaches, the first one being importing and exporting. This is a common first step in global expansion, involving buying and selling goods and services to customers outside the home country. So, some examples can include Japan exporting cars into the United States, and the United States importing electronics from China. The second is licensing and franchising. This is where organizations sell the rights to their products or trademarks to producers, and where a business grants the right to use its business model and brand to be replicated and or expanded, usually in return for a fee. An example of a licensing agreement could be the relationship between Starbucks and Target, and a franchise can be a McDonald's inside of a Walmart store. The number three is joint ventures and foreign direct investments. This is where two or more partners share ownership and risk in the investments. And when a company takes a controlling ownership interest in a business in another country. So, a perfect example, as we read in our textbook, was Toyota and Mazda forming a joint venture to build a final assembly plant outside of their countries for the automobiles here in the United States. Now I'll be passing it over on to Danny to talk about international staffing assignments.
Staffing internationally has been an issue because as companies expand overseas, the biggest challenge is figuring out who should work there and how to manage the situation. The ultimate goal is to combine the local expertise along with the specific knowledge from the employees and the headquarters. Typically, it has been challenging as first, it has a high cost as a single assignment could cost the company a large amount of money, and it has a high failure rate as 50% either don't acclimate to the new environment or just elect to return early. So let's look at the different types of global employees. First, we have what they call expats, expatriates, and those are people from the home country that travel to another country to work on a US, like let's say somebody from the US going to an India to work inside a US firm. The other kind is, and those are the ones that go on an assignment. Typically, those require the most extensive preparation for their travel so they could acclimate quickly and be productive on their work site as they reach there. The other type is the host country nationals, and that's for a company like McDonald's hiring German managers to manage their locations in Berlin and Germany itself. Uh, the issue there is holding these managers or employees to the standards of the company and the home country. And the third type is a third country nationals. That's like hiring an Indian engineer to work at a Mercedes-Benz factory in the US. This is the most complicated of all three as it involves a lot of legal and combining the strategies and control over the three. In order for these hiring practices to be successful, there are multiple factors that need to be looked at as they are carried out. First is the cultural adjustment, the awareness of the new environment, the customs, the values of the new country. And second is the organizational requirement, whether they are stable and they can be productive within the meeting the job requirements and the company's knowledge. The personal characteristics, whether they have the emotional stability and flexibility to be within the place, the communication, which is the language, the verbal, the nonverbal, whether they could accomplish the fluency required. And lastly, it's the personal and family concerns. Some families are just not willing to move across. And lastly is the career development, whether the move is the right move for the employee to go overseas and work. Since 2016, most of the companies have been doing something called reshoring, bringing their jobs back to the U.S. And as they bring the jobs back for political stability and for reputation of the firm itself. Moving global staffing is much more about more than just moving people across borders. It has to be a good fit and it has to be managed through different cultures, professional environments, and with a high cost. And I will hand it over to Alex to continue on.
All right. Thank you so much, Danny. So now we're going to be talking about international compensation. So, what is international compensation? So, what it is exactly is when it's just when companies used to pay employees who work in different countries, it becomes more complicated than domestic pay because every country has its own employment laws, tax rules, and regulations that they have to follow. Some countries require specific benefits or minimum standards, while others give employers more flexibility. Companies also have to think about the cost of living in the host country because expenses like housing, food, or transportation might be higher or lower than in the employee's home country. Cultural expectations also play a big role. In some cultures, bonuses are expected, in others, job security or benefits matter more. Because of all of these differences, global companies design compensation systems that are fair, competitive, and supportive for employees no matter where they work. The main goal is to attract and keep talent worldwide while still controlling costs and staying consistent with company values. Next slide, please. So global pay differences. So pay levels vary widely around the world. Some countries pay very high wages, especially in Western Europe or Scandinavia, while developing countries may pay much lower salaries, even for similar jobs. Cost of living is one of the biggest reasons for these differences. A salary that works well in one location might not cover the basic needs in another. So companies must also understand the differences in labor laws and the required benefits. Some countries mandate paid parental leave, profit sharing, or limits on weekly working hours. Others allow companies more flexibility. Culture shapes expectations too. In some regions, employees expect regular bonuses or guaranteed annual increases. In others, people care more about long-term stability or community-based rewards. Some countries expect transparency about pay practices, while in others, that information is private. Because of these variations, companies must adjust their compensation strategies when entering new global markets. Otherwise, they risk being uncompetitive or non-compliant. Next slide, please. So, approaches to international pay. Companies can use several approaches to handle pay for employees working internationally. One option is a global pay system where the company tries to keep salaries consistent across countries. This helps with fairness and mobility, but it can be expensive or unrealistic in countries with very different living costs. A more flexible option is local pay, where employees are paid based on the market rate in the host country. This works well for employees staying long term, but may feel unfair for expatriates who come from higher paying home countries. A very common method is the balance sheet approach. This approach helps employees maintain the same standard of living they had at home by adjusting pay to cover cost of living differences, taxes, and housing. It is widely used because it feels fair and predictable. Companies must also choose between home country pay and host country pay. Home country pay keeps the employee tied to their original salary structure. Host country pay aligns them with local employees. Finally, some companies can use split pay systems where part of the salary is paid in the home currency and part in the host currency. This helps employees deal with the currency changes and manage their finances more easily. Next slide, please. So finally, we have allowances, benefits, and incentives. So when employees move to another country, they often face new expenses and challenges. So companies provide allowances and additional benefits to help them adjust successfully. Housing allowances help cover the cost of finding safe and comfortable living arrangements in sometimes very expensive cities. Education allowances help employees with children enroll in schools that meet international standards. Transportation or travel allowances support commuting, relocation travel, or trips home to visit family. Hardship premiums are added when the employee is assigned to a country that has difficult living conditions, such as high crime, political instability, or limited health care. These payments help compensate for the personal and family challenges of living in a tougher environment. Companies also offer relocation support to cover packing, shipping belongings, temporary housing, and settling in costs. Benefits vary significant across countries. Some locations have national health care, while others rely on employer-provided health insurance. Paid leave laws differ widely too. Because of this, companies must adjust benefits to stay legally compliant and competitive in each region. Overall, allowances and benefits help employees focus on their work, feel supported, and remain committed during their international assignments. Thank you, and now we'll pass it over to Navdeep.
Thank you, Alex. All right, now let's talk about global employees and labor relations. So since many companies now operate in multiple countries, it is very important that they follow the rules and regulations of the country that they want to do business in. For example, US requires that all of its citizens follow the rules and regulations, even if they're working abroad. Similar way, Europe asks for the businesses that want to do business in that country to not only follow the EC community rules, but also follow the rules and regulations of the country that they want to do business in. For example, France. Due to all of these complexities, it actually becomes different for HR to have one consistent system throughout, and it also causes difficulties to terminate employees in places where they have strong labor connections. So whenever deciding to expand businesses, HR must decide if they want to implement one global policy or they want to have country-specific rules and regulations. Either way, whatever they decide to go with, it is really important that HR must balance that global strategy and that local compliance of the country that they want to do business in. Next slide, please. Unions in global arena. So now that there are so many companies deciding to expand, there's actually a lot of competition in between the countries to attract that business to compete for those jobs and investments. And whenever businesses like decide to expand, one of the factors that they look at is the union strength. So the companies or the nations that actually have stronger union strengths or where they have a stronger bargaining power, such as countries like Europe, Iceland, Sweden, where they have the power to negotiate employee benefits, pays, or like working conditions, they are not seen as favorable by the companies, outside companies, as compared to the other countries where developing countries where there's weak union strength. Another factor that the HR or the companies also look at is what is the focus of those unions. So are they focusing on child labor, safety, or work protections? Each country union might have different priorities. Next slide, please. There are also different types of global labor organizations. One of the most important one is International Labor Organization, which is situated in Switzerland. It sets the international labor standards and promotes worker rights, safety, and fair treatment. There's also global federations of unions, which support union nations and also the nations in the developing also the unions in the developing nations, such as Union Network International. Next slide, please. Like I said earlier, when we talk about unions, there's actually different kinds of unions or different priorities. For example, in United States, when we talk about union, their main motive is to make sure that the employees have better pay, better benefits, etc. Whereas unions in global countries, they also include social and political issues when they're negotiating. Where in United States, we have unions based off of specific groups. For example, the truck drivers might have a specific union group as compared to the nurses or the teachers. In the global union or other countries, these are represented at the national levels and they could be represented as industries. And where in the United States, we have long and detailed contracts that could actually last over years. In other global countries, they might have they might have contracts that might be need to renegotiate it every year because there's a lot of government involved. And also, when we talk about unions in the United States, a lot of the times management and unions see each other as opponents, whereas in global unions, a lot of the times they're more cooperative and sometimes they even have members from the unions that sit with the board of directors to make those decisions. Now I'll pass on to George, who will talk about the developing global leader strategy.
Thank you, Navi. So I'll be focusing on learning objective 6, defining 4 important aspects of developing leaders for a global organization. As businesses expand globally, developing leaders who can manage across cultures and borders becomes essential. So developing global leaders isn't just about traditional management skills. It's about preparing people to work across cultures, communicate effectively, and adapt to different environments. So we'll look at 4 main aspects that make this development successful. Next slide, please. All right, so the first is global assignment training. Before sending employees abroad, companies need to train both them and their families. This includes learning about the host country's language, customs, and workplace culture, all of which reduce culture shock and increase success abroad. Next slide, please. The second is intercultural competence. So this training builds the ability to understand, respect, and work effectively with people from different backgrounds. So it includes cognitive learning, emotional awareness, and behavior skills. So basically knowing, feeling, and acting appropriately in diverse cultural settings. So this is figure 1612. It's on page 590 of our textbook. Section 5 is here for your reference. Next slide, please. The third is global leadership development. Global leaders need broader skills, not just managing people, but understanding global markets, and cultural differences, virtual teamwork. So, like studies like the Globe Project emphasize empathy, ethics, and cross-cultural communication as key leadership traits. Next slide, please. So the fourth and final aspect in learning objective 6 is global career and repatriation support. So when employees return home, they often struggle to adjust to find their experience undervalued. So good HR practices ensure they're supported, mentored, and placed in roles where their global insights benefit the company. So an example of this is if you ever seen the show Tokyo Vice, the main character, he goes to Japan and it's a big culture shock for him. He's a news reporter from America, and then he returns back home later in season 2, and the cultural differences, as far as like transportation, even pay, are significantly different. Because in Tokyo, you take the trains, where he was in the middle of America, where you needed a car. It was vital in order to commute to and from work, as well as paying and like in the military, for example. Even like master sergeants and roles in the military also experience this when we talk about families, for example, and number one, just having to adjust in these certain situations. It is vital for these companies, whether, like I said, you're in the military or a private company to or organization to implement these 4 tactics. Next slide, please. So just kind of recap and summarize everything, developing leaders for a global organization means preparing them before they go abroad, teaching cultural competence, building strong leadership programs, and supporting their long-term careers when they return. That's very important. So together, these create a sustainable global leadership pipeline. Thank you. And then now my team member will be going over the case study, winning at Carlsberg. Thank you.
Thank you, George. All right, so our case was about Danish rural Carlsberg Group and how they grew through numerous acquisitions to become the fourth largest international beer producer, employing over 40,000 people and selling more than 500 brands of beer. The company operates globally with the growing strategic presence in Asia, their mainlands being in China and Malaysia. The challenge here was balancing standard corporate-driven practices with customized local practices, especially after growing through their acquisitions. We can see a corporate culture initiative, which was called Winning Behaviors, was established, which focused on developing staff to take the lead in the market. However, initial pushback occurred from local subsidiary leaders who felt that Danish values were being imposed. However, a planning session with diverse leaders resulted in a set of 5 universal behaviors that also respected local needs. The first one being together we are stronger, we want to win, our customers and consumers are at the heart of every decision we make. We are each empowered to make a difference, and we are engaged with society. There was an implementation using a global approach. This was thinking globally but acting locally. Workshops and ambassadors helped spread the culture while HR integrated it into recruiting, performance management, and training, identifying 10 leadership competencies for these systems. So we can see a local buy-in and adaptation in Malaysia, where managers embrace the initiative, painting headquarters Carlsberg green and holding a video script contest, earning the strongest winning culture award. And in China, a video featuring company leaders illustrated values aligning with a top-down culture, alongside 2 stories emphasizing winning versus losing behaviors rooted in local storytelling traditions. However, challenges remain with adopting empowerment in China due to existing hierarchies, while winning behaviors is still developing. expatriate managers note that many elements are succeeding in Asian subsidiaries. Next slide. So this video is a classic, although unintentional and funny example of a global misstep by Braniff Airlines. Let's take a look.
Braniff Airlines ran ad their new jets had all leather seats. Their slogan, fly in leather, translated as fly en cuero, which can mean fly naked.
So
In
this is a
1987,
prime example of the critical need for cultural awareness and professional translation in international marketing, highlighting how a global campaign promoting new seats everywhere needs careful local adaptation to avoid embarrassing misinterpretations and or mistranslations. Now I'll be passing it over on to Navi to read us our discussion questions.
Thank you, Esther. Okay, so our first question is, should multinational companies create one global HR policy or adapt to their labor practices to each country's union laws and cultural expectations, and why? Second, in Carlsberg's effort to promote its winning behaviors across global subsidiaries, how can leaders ensure that a shared corporate culture strengthens unity without diminishing the local cultural identities? And our last question is, in what ways can aging population in developed nations and younger workforces in developing regions reshape and global talent strategies? Thank you.